Let's start with something raw, something real. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever had one of those days where everything should be fine, but for some reason, you're just not? You got enough sleep, you ate, you checked the boxes, but there's this fog, that weird low hum inside you that says something's off. You scroll, you smile, you maybe even laugh at something online, but when it gets quiet again, you're not okay. You're not miserable, no. But happy? No, not that either. Let me tell you the truth about that feeling. Most people live their whole lives in that in-between state. Not crashing, not flying, just hovering, and they've accepted it as normal. But what if I told you that you're not supposed to live in a state of mess? That happiness, real daily happiness, isn't some luxury emotion for the lucky few who have more money, more time, or more peace. What if I told you that happiness is a discipline, a skill you train, a decision you make? You see, I've talked to people who've lived through war zones, trauma, unimaginable pain, and you know what shocked me most? They learned to be happy, not when life was easy, not when they had time to meditate in the mountains, but right in the mess, right in that chaos. They learned something most of us were never taught. You don't find happiness, you build it. So the question is no longer, will I be happy today? It becomes, what will I do to make sure I am? And if that sparks something inside you, if a small voice just said, wait, I can learn this, good. Because for the next 30 minutes, we're not going to talk about fairy tale joy or Instagram smiles. We're going to talk about the real stuff. How to wire your brain, your habits, your emotions, and your environment to become someone who doesn't just survive the day, but owns it. Every single time. Let's go there. Most people grow up thinking happiness is something that just happens to you. It's like the weather. You either wake up to sunshine or you don't. And on the days you don't, well, too bad. That's how the world taught us to see happiness. A random emotion based on circumstances we can't control. Got a raise, you're happy, someone cut you off in traffic. You're pissed. Your partner brings home your favorite dessert. Boom. Instant joy. The Wi-Fi goes out. Your mood tanks. But if that's how you operate, if your emotional state is a reflection of everything around you, you're not in control. You're at the mercy of your environment. That's not power. That's survival. Here's what they never taught you in school or even at home. Happiness is not an emotion you chase. It's a skill you build, like strength, like discipline, like confidence. It's something you train for daily. And like any skill, it takes time, effort, and consistency. Think about a professional athlete. They don't just wake up feeling strong. They show up to the gym whether they feel like it or not. They stretch when they're sore. They eat for fuel, not for comfort. They stay focused even when they're tired. And eventually, over time, that training becomes a part of them. Their body adapts, they get better. They become stronger. Happiness works the exact same way. But the problem is, most of us don't treat it that way. We sit around waiting to feel better before we do anything. We tell ourselves, when I have more time, I'll take care of myself. Or when work calms down, I'll get back to what makes me happy. But let's be honest, that moment doesn't come. Because life doesn't slow down, and time doesn't show up and gift you peace. You have to make it. Training for happiness starts with your mindset. It starts with taking ownership of your emotional state, even when things around you are chaotic. That's not toxic positivity. This isn't about pretending everything's fine. It's about saying, no matter what's going on around me, I decide how I show up today. You don't have to feel like being positive to act like someone who protects their peace. Let's say you wake up tired, you're frustrated, the day already feels heavy, the trained mindset says, okay, this is what I'm working with today. Let's do what we can. You drink water, you take 10 deep breaths, you get dressed like you're ready to face the world, even if your brain's not on board yet. That's training, that's emotional resilience. You're building a habit of getting into alignment on purpose. Now, will that feel good immediately? No, it'll feel like a lie. Your brain will resist it. You'll want to go back to bed, scroll for comfort, blame something or someone for how off you feel. But if you give in to that habit, if you default to the easiest, most reactive version of yourself, you'll feel worse by noon, not better. So you have to interrupt the pattern. That's how you train. You don't wait for happiness to show up. You initiate it. And no, it doesn't have to be some huge, dramatic gesture. You don't have to run a marathon or go to a silent retreat in Bali. Sometimes it's as small as standing up, shaking out your shoulders, and saying, I'm not staying in this mental state today. That's it. It starts with one decision. Then you follow it with another and another. That's what builds emotional momentum. Now here's the part nobody talks about. When you treat happiness as a skill, you also accept that some days you're going to suck at it. Just like the gym. Some workouts are off, some reps feel weak, some days you barely show up. And that's okay, because consistency isn't about perfection. It's about returning to the practice again and again, even when you mess it up. So when you lose your temper or spiral into negative thinking or spend an entire afternoon numbing out, don't beat yourself up. That's part of the process. You notice it, you take a breath, and you come back stronger tomorrow. That's the practice. That's the grind. The more you train happiness this way, the more automatic it becomes. You'll catch your inner critic faster. You'll spot toxic thoughts before they sink in. You'll start your mornings with clarity instead of chaos. Not because life is easier, but because you're stronger. You've built mental muscle. And let's get something clear. This isn't about being happy all the time. That's not the goal. Life throws punches. People betray us. We lose things we care about. There's pain, but training happiness doesn't mean you avoid discomfort. It means you learn how to process pain without drowning in it. You feel what you need to feel, but then you lead yourself out of it. That's power. That's peace. So if you want to be happy, really happy in a deep, unshakable way, stop chasing moments. Start building systems. Systems of thought, systems of action, systems of recovery. Wake up and choose your mindset like you choose your clothes. Prepare your brain like you prepare your coffee. Make joy a non-negotiable, not something you hope for, but something you train into your life. And the best part, no one can take that away from you. Not your boss, not your ex, not the economy, not your past. Because when happiness is a skill, you own it, you earned it. And you'll carry it with you every single day, no matter what. Let's get one thing straight. Your emotions are your responsibility. All of them. The good, the bad, the uncomfortable. That's a hard truth. Most people avoid because it's much easier to point fingers at the world. It's easy to say, I'm angry because they disrespected me, or I'm sad because life isn't fair, or I'm anxious because the world is a mess. And listen, I'm not here to deny that real pain exists. It does. People do hurt you. Circumstances fall apart. Life throws things at you that you didn't ask for and don't deserve. But here's the thing. No one wants to admit. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is a choice. You suffer when you give away the keys to your emotional house. When you let someone else walk in and rearrange your peace just because they were having a bad day. When your entire mood is determined by how someone else treats you. You're not living, you're reacting. You're waiting for someone or something to decide how you feel. And that's dangerous, because the world doesn't owe you kindness. It doesn't owe you fairness or validation or emotional safety. If you're waiting for the world to be soft before you can feel peace inside, you're going to be waiting a long time. So here's the real challenge. You need to learn how to own your emotional landscape. What does that mean? It means you don't hand off your power. It means you become aware of how you're feeling, why you're feeling it, and what you're going to do with that feeling. It means you stop blaming the outside world for what's happening inside you. Most people never learn this. They live on emotional autopilot. Something triggers them, they lash out, something upsets them, they spiral, something scares them, they shut down, but reaction is not strength. Reaction is default. And if all you ever do is react, then your emotions own you. To take ownership, you have to create space between what happens and how you respond. That space is where your power lives. Let's say someone criticizes you. Your instinct might be to defend yourself, to get angry, to withdraw. But if you pause just for a second, you give yourself the chance to choose a response instead of react out of habit. You can ask, why did that hit me so hard? Maybe it's not even about them. Maybe it's tapping into an old wound. Maybe your reaction isn't about this moment. It's about 10 others you've never dealt with. That's emotional ownership, being willing to look inward even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. Most people don't want to do this because it's easier to externalize everything. They say things like, he made me feel small, or she ruined my day. But let me ask you this. When did you hand them that kind of power? When did you decide that someone else gets to define your worth or direct your mood? Because that's not on them, that's on you. Now, this doesn't mean you won't feel things. You will. Ownership doesn't mean numbness. It means maturity. It means saying, yes, I feel this, but I get to decide what happens next. You can feel angry without becoming destructive. You can feel anxious and still take action. You can feel sadness and still show up. That's what emotional strength really is. Staying grounded in your values, no matter how loud your feelings get. Let me give you an example. Imagine your emotions are like the weather, and you're the sky. The sky doesn't become the storm, it just holds it. That storm can rage. It can pour, but the sky remains. Your job is not to be storm-free. Your job is to become the sky. Steady, spacious, capable of containing your emotions without being consumed by them. And the only way to do that is to observe yourself. That means practicing emotional awareness, naming what you feel without judgment. Not, I'm such a mess because I'm anxious, but I feel anxious right now. Notice the difference. One traps you, the other frees you. One is identity, the other is observation. And when you observe, you create choice. You give yourself room to breathe, to adjust, to respond with intention. Another part of ownership is understanding your emotional triggers. What sets you off? What patterns do you repeat? What stories are you telling yourself that keep you stuck? Because most of our emotional reactions are just recycled scripts. Maybe when someone ignores you, it brings back the feeling of being unwanted as a kid. Maybe when things go quiet, your brain fills in the silence with fear. These reactions didn't come out of nowhere. They were built over time. But just because something was programmed into you doesn't mean you have to keep running it. You can rewire your patterns. You can rewrite the narrative, but only if you're willing to be brutally honest with yourself. That's the work. It's not always pretty. You'll catch yourself mid-reaction and realize you're doing the very thing you swore you'd stop doing. You'll face parts of yourself that make you cringe. But that's what healing is, not comfort. Courage. It takes courage to look inward and say, this is mine. I created this. I can change it. And the beauty of that, once you start owning your emotions, you become immune to emotional manipulation. People can still try to hurt you. Sure. But they don't get to steer you. You stop being a puppet to other people's moods. You stop being a slave to your past. You stop living in emotional reaction, and you start living in emotional command. You show up with more peace, more clarity, more stability, not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. You're no longer just surviving your emotions. You're leading them. That's what it means to own your emotional landscape. And when you do that, you don't wait for happiness. You create it every single day from the inside out. Let's talk about habits, not the glamorous kind, not the kind that trends on social media for 30 days and disappears. Let's talk about the daily, gritty, sometimes boring routines that quietly build the strongest kind of protection you'll ever have. Psychological armor. Because the truth is, the world is unpredictable. You can't control what's going to hit you today or tomorrow. But what you can control is how prepared you are for it. That preparation doesn't come from reading the right book once or hearing one good podcast. It comes from what you do consistently, especially when nobody's watching. If your mind is the battlefield, then habits are your armor. They're not glamorous. They're not even always fun, but they're essential. You don't wait until you're under attack to start building a shield. You build it beforehand, every single day. The strongest people you know, emotionally speaking, they don't wake up invincible. They prepare themselves to face life. And the way they do that is by engineering their day. So it supports their mind, their energy, and their emotional stability. It's not random. It's not based on motivation. It's deliberate. It's strategic. It's discipline. Let's start with the morning, because that's where most people lose the battle before the day even begins. You wake up, you reach for your phone, and instantly your brain is hit with a flood of information. News headlines, text messages, social media noise. You haven't even had water yet, and you're already absorbing the chaos of the world. That's not harmless. That's programming. You're letting external input shape your internal state before you've even checked in with yourself. Here's what strong people do instead. They own the first moments of the day. Before they check the world, they check themselves. How am I feeling? What do I need today? What's my intention? It might be as simple as sitting in silence for 2 minutes, writing down 3 things you're grateful for, or stretching your body to shake off yesterday's weight. These small actions signal something critical to your mind. I'm in charge here. That's psychological armor. Not a bubble that protects you from life, but a foundation that grounds you when life gets loud. Another key habit, protect your inputs. People think habits are only about what you do, but they're also about what you allow in. Who are you listening to? What are you watching? Who are you spending your time with? Every conversation, every article, every song, it's either feeding your strength or feeding your weakness. You have to become a gatekeeper for your own mind. That means cutting off toxic inputs. Yes, even if they're people you care about. If someone consistently drains you, manipulates you, or keeps you in a cycle of stress, then you owe it to yourself to set a boundary. That's not cruelty, that's self-respect. And it's a habit, choosing your peace over guilt, choosing your growth over obligation. Another form of armor, movement. Not for the body, although that's a bonus, but for the brain. When you move your body, you discharge stress, you shift your chemistry, you tell your nervous system, we're not stuck, we're not helpless, we're moving forward, whether it's lifting, walking, boxing, dancing, doesn't matter. What matters is that you build the habit of showing up for your body, because that reinforces the belief that you can show up for anything. Breathing is another tool that people underestimate, because it sounds too simple to matter. But breathing isn't just a survival mechanism, it's a control lever. The way you breathe tells your nervous system what kind of world it's in. Shallow, rapid breaths, that's panic. Deep, intentional breaths, that's calm, focus, clarity. Most people go their entire day holding their breath. Without realizing it, you need to retrain your body to relax on command. And that comes from breath work, not when you're in the middle of a meltdown, but as a daily habit, so that when stress shows up, your body already knows how to return to calm. Let's talk about journaling. Not the cliche version, but the kind that builds internal strength. Writing down what you feel, what you fear, what you're working through. That's emotional weightlifting. When you journal consistently, you stop being overwhelmed by your thoughts because you've created a container for them. Instead of carrying them all day, you process them. You organize your mind, and that gives you clarity. Clarity is armor. It keeps you from making decisions based on chaos. And then there's the habit of stillness, silence, doing nothing. Most people run from it because silence forces them to hear what's really going on inside. But that's the whole point. You can't be mentally strong if you're constantly avoiding your inner world. Take 5 minutes. Sit, no distractions. Just you and your breath. Let the discomfort come. Let the thoughts surface. That space where it's just you. No numbing, no scrolling. That's where your strength is forged. All these habits together, morning intention, controlled input, movement, breath, journaling, stillness, they stack. Each one might feel small on its own. But when you practice them daily, they build a system, and that system becomes your armor. So when the stress hits, when someone disappoints you, when the unexpected shows up, you're not scrambling for peace. You already have it. Because you've been building it every day. You've trained for this. Psychological armor doesn't mean you don't feel pain. It means pain doesn't control you. It means you can bend without breaking. It means you can feel everything, but still stand tall. That kind of strength isn't gifted. It's earned. Through repetition, through intention, through choosing better every day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. You don't need the world to be softer. You need to become stronger. And these daily habits, they're how you do it. Quietly, relentlessly, powerfully. Day by day, you stop waiting for peace and start building it. Brick by brick. Most people don't even realize how much noise they're living in. Not sound. The real noise is deeper than that. It's the pressure to be everything to everyone. The pressure to keep up, stay relevant, stay liked. It's the mental clutter from the news, from social media, from other people's opinions. It's the 1,000 tiny expectations shouting at you from every direction, telling you who you should be, what you should care about, and what your life is supposed to look like. And if you're not careful, that noise becomes your compass. It starts directing your choices. It decides what your goals should be, what success means, even what kind of happiness you're allowed to pursue. And suddenly you're building a life that doesn't even belong to you. You're chasing things you don't really want, living by standards you didn't set, performing instead of living. That's why people feel burned out even when things look good on paper. They've achieved a checklist, but they're empty inside because nothing they built was aligned with who they actually are. They listen to the noise, they let it drown out their own voice. So if you want to feel real peace, if you want to be happy every day in a way that feels honest and grounded, you have to start cutting out the noise. You have to get brutally clear about one thing, what actually matters to you. Not what your parents think should matter, not what society says, not what looks good online. You, right here, right now. What are your values? What kind of life do you want to be proud of when no one else is watching? Most people don't know the answer because they've never paused long enough to ask. They've been too busy performing, comparing, reacting. And let's be real, slowing down is scary because when it gets quiet, you have to face the truth. You have to admit when something in your life is off, when a relationship is draining you, when a job is suffocating you, when your daily habits are numbing you instead of nourishing you. But that's the kind of honesty that frees you. You can't build a life that matches your values until you know what your values actually are. So start there. What do you stand for? What are your non-negotiables? What kind of person do you want to become? And once you're clear on that, once you've defined what your truth looks like, you need to start editing everything in your life that doesn't align with it. That's where it gets uncomfortable. That's where real growth begins. Maybe that means stepping away from relationships that keep pulling you into old patterns. Maybe it means leaving a job that's killing your spirit, even if it pays well. Maybe it means saying no more often, even if people don't like it. Because here's the hard truth. If your life is full of things that don't align with your values, you'll always feel scattered, anxious, disconnected. No amount of meditation or journaling will fix it until you start making different choices. Cutting out the noise is not about escaping reality. It's about curating your reality, being intentional, being ruthless about your peace. That means taking back control of what you let in. Not everyone gets access to your energy. Not every piece of news deserves your emotional reaction. Not every message needs a reply. Just because something exists doesn't mean you have to carry it. You need to stop trying to fix everything outside of you and start adjusting what you allow inside. That's the real discipline. Creating a life that reflects who you are, not who the world says you should be. That might look like simplifying your schedule, choosing rest instead of hustle, walking away from drama, choosing the slower path that gives you more meaning over the faster one that gives you more attention, doing things that feed your soul even if no one claps for them. Because here's the truth that most people don't realize until it's too late. A loud life is not a meaningful life. Being busy, being liked, being successful in the eyes of the world means nothing. If you're not at peace with yourself, peace doesn't come from having more. It comes from needing less, from getting clear on what truly matters and then designing your days around it. Not someday, today. You have to be willing to let go of good things to make room for the right things. That means letting go of the image you've been trying to keep up, letting go of what people might think, letting go of the fear of missing out. Because every time you say yes to noise, you say no to clarity. And clarity is power. When you know what you stand for, decisions get easier, boundaries get firmer, your focus sharpens, you stop second-guessing yourself. You stop looking sideways and start walking your own path, quietly, strongly, confidently. It doesn't mean you'll never get distracted again. You will. The noise is always out there, but now you'll recognize it faster. You'll catch yourself before you spiral. You'll return to your values like a compass. Realign. Recenter. That's the practice. So ask yourself, if I muted the world right now, if I turned down the volume on everything, what would I still hear? What would still feel true? That's your signal. Follow it. Honor it. Build your life around that. Not the noise. Because once you do, you won't just be chasing happiness. You'll be living it. every single day, quietly, boldly, authentically. Most people think happiness lives in comfort. They think once they have the perfect schedule, the right partner, the stable job, the dream vacation, then they'll be happy. That's the fantasy. But here's the truth. No one really talks about the kind of happiness that lasts, the kind that makes you feel strong, alive, proud. It doesn't come from comfort. It comes from growth. And growth only lives in one place, discomfort. Think about the happiest moments of your life. Not the easiest ones, but the realest ones. The ones that left you with a deep sense of pride, peace, confidence. Maybe it was finishing something you thought you couldn't. Maybe it was finally having a hard conversation you avoided for years. Maybe it was walking away from something that didn't serve you. Those weren't easy moments. They weren't soft. They required you to stretch, to face something uncomfortable, to do the hard thing. But they gave you something no easy day ever could. Self-respect. That's what people miss. Real joy doesn't come from avoiding pain. It comes from overcoming it. From proving to yourself that you're capable of more than you thought. From showing up when quitting would have been easier. From choosing your values over your fears. That's where pride lives. That's where fulfillment starts. And that's the kind of joy no one can take from you. But most people spend their whole lives running from discomfort. They avoid tough conversations. They stay in jobs they hate. They scroll instead of sitting with their feelings. They build entire routines around keeping things safe. And then they wonder why they feel stuck, anxious, unmotivated. It's not because life is too hard. It's because they've stopped challenging themselves. They've chosen emotional sedation over emotional strength. Discomfort isn't the enemy. It's the doorway. It's the signal that you're about to grow. Every time you feel resistance, every time your brain says, I don't want to do this, or what if I fail? That's an invitation. That's the exact moment you need to lean in, not run. Because here's the deal, nothing meaningful happens inside your comfort zone. You don't get stronger there. You don't get wiser there. You don't build resilience by doing what's easy. You build it by walking into the fire, again and again, until the fire doesn't scare you anymore. That doesn't mean chasing chaos or putting yourself in danger. It means becoming someone who chooses challenge on purpose. Someone who gets up early, even when it's easier to stay in bed. Someone who speaks up even when their voice shakes. Someone who does the right thing even when no one's clapping. Why? Because on the other side of that discomfort is the kind of joy that changes you, the kind that comes from knowing you didn't quit, you didn't hide, you didn't let fear drive the car. You showed up, you leveled up, and even if it didn't go perfectly, you grew. And that growth becomes your happiness, not the fake kind, not the everything looks great on Instagram kind, the real kind, the kind that fills your lungs and calms your nervous system, the kind that makes you walk into a room with quiet confidence because you know who you are. You've earned your peace and no one can take that away from you. Here's another truth. Discomfort doesn't get smaller. You get bigger. The first time you do something hard, it rattles you. But the 10th time, it's normal. You've adapted, you've trained. That's how you stretch your limits, by stepping outside of them. Not once, not twice, but every day, little by little. Until the thing that used to scare you is now your warm-up. This is how happiness is sustained, not by staying safe, but by becoming strong. You learn to trust yourself. You build evidence that you can handle hard things. You stop fearing the unknown, because you know you'll figure it out. That's the power of choosing discomfort. It gives you back control. Instead of waiting for life to go easy on you, you rise to meet it. You become someone who doesn't just hope for a better life. You build it one uncomfortable decision at a time. And yes, it's scary. Of course it is. That's the point. If it wasn't scary, it wouldn't matter. Discomfort is the cost of growth. And growth is the foundation of every kind of deep, lasting happiness there. So the next time you feel fear, resistance, hesitation, that moment when your brain says, let's take the easy way out, stop, breathe, ask yourself, what would the strongest version of me do right now? Then do that. Not because it's fun, not because it's easy, but because it's who you're becoming. That version of you, the one who leans into discomfort instead of hiding from it, that's the version who knows how to be happy every day. Because they don't need life to be perfect. They just need to keep showing up. And that's where the real joy lives. Let's be clear about one thing. Happiness isn't handed to you. It's not found. It's built, and it's built by people who are willing to take ownership of their lives, who are done waiting for the world to change and instead choose to change themselves. If you've been drifting through your days, numbing, avoiding, hoping for some moment to arrive that finally makes it all click, it's time to stop. That moment isn't coming. You are the moment. You are the turning point. Every single day, you are either reinforcing your power or giving it away. Every choice you make, every thought you entertain, every habit you repeat, it's either building your peace or breaking it down. So ask yourself, who are you becoming? Not just when life feels good, but when it's hard, when it's uncertain, when it's uncomfortable. Because that's the version of you that decides your happiness. Not the one who shows up when everything's smooth, the one who shows up anyway. You don't need perfect conditions to be happy. You need courage. You need commitment. You need discipline. You need honesty. You need to show up for yourself over and over, even when no one else does. So from this moment forward, stop asking, will I be happy today? Start asking, what will I do to create it? Because it's not out there. It's not later. It's now. It's you. It's always been you. Make the decision. Train the mind. Own the day. Be the kind of person who doesn't just survive life. They live it fully, fiercely, and on their own terms. That's how you learn to be happy. Every single day. And that's not a dream. That's a decision. Make it.